The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Vollmer. Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderwoman Sanier. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldred. President Green.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderwoman Sanier. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Sanier. We have 11 present. We have quorum.
A quorum being present, we will be led in opening reflection and prayer by Executive Conflict Resolution Center in St. Louis as we observe National Conflict Resolution Day. Please welcome Mr.
Good morning, Board of Alderpeople, and thank you for letting me lead the reflection today. Yesterday was Conflict Resolution Day, so today's reflection, of course, is going to be about the importance of conflict to our community. None of us are strangers to conflict. Like many of you, I too am afraid of conflict. I am afraid of the scars it has left on my body. I am afraid of the harm it has caused my friends, my family, and my community. And I am afraid of the ghosts of the people it has killed: parents, siblings, children. And yet, I love conflict like an old friend. I love the way it has helped me understand who I am. I love the incredibly beautiful creations I get to enjoy because of a conflict resolved. And I love the way that communities come together to overcome once thought insurmountable conflict. I do not believe in a world without conflict, but I do believe in a world where conflicts can be resolved without emotional or physical violence. But to get there, we have to start small. We have to practice disagreeing without villainizing, and we have to practice finding common ground. What are your fears? And what are mine? What are your hopes? And what are mine? The answers may not solve everything, but at least they will start us in the right direction. Thank you.
We will dispense with the regular order of business to take up the courtesy resolution calendar. Alderwoman, you're recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing courtesy resolution number 161.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing courtesy resolution 161.
Been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of introducing courtesy resolution number 161. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Odenberg, Alderman Cone, Alderman Narayan, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Sanier, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Aldrich, President Green,
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg, Alderman Narayan, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Tyus, she's on mute. Alderwoman Tyus, can you hear us?
She's driving, it looks like, and per our rules, you can't respond when you're driving.
Alderwoman Boyd. We have 11 aye votes. We have 12 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 10th for the purposes of introducing Courtesy Resolution 161. Alderwoman from the 10th, if you would like to approach the dais for the presentation of Resolution 161.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Madam Clerk, while the amazing women of Delta Sigma Theta sorority are entering the chamber, can you please read the resolution?
Resolution number 161, honoring the Sisters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Whereas in 1913, 22 collegiate women founded the distinguished sorority of Delta Sigma Theta at the prestigious and historic Howard University in our nation's capital. And whereas shortly after its creation, Delta founders stepped out on faith to march within the suffragettes and took a historic stand for social justice as their first public act and remain in the forefront of action, focusing their work under the theme Forward with Fortitude, engaging our sisterhood, empowering our communities, elevating our impact. And whereas the St. Louis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated have proudly been committed to public service in the St. Louis area. And whereas every Delta uses her influence for the enactment of laws to protect the unfortunate and for the repeal of those laws which deprive human beings of their privileges and rights, and whereas Deltas are increasingly involved in important issues on the local, state, and federal levels and in global issues, and whereas this honorable Board of Aldermen welcomes all the Deltas from throughout the St. Louis area who are gathered in City Hall today for Delta Day in the city of St. Louis City to participate in Delta Day Fortitude on the front line, preserving our past and protecting our future. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the St. Louis City Board of Aldermen that we pause in our deliberations to recognize and thank the Sisters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for their commitment, leadership, service, and many contributions to the city of St. Louis. We further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that we that may be presented to Delta Day 2024 in the city of St. Louis, introduced this 18th day of October 2024 by the Honorable Shameen Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman 10th Ward.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So I'm going to step out the way, but before I do, I want to acknowledge that the last time I had the honor of doing this, I was standing next to my own Delta deer. I was standing next to my own Delta deer, my mother, Rochelle Clark, whom I pray that she is smiling down today and sees her amazing sisters and daughters, some of them daughters to her, and knowing that while I don't have the honor of being a Delta, they have always embraced me, encouraged me, and made me feel like I'm one of them, I'm part of them. My mother loved being a Delta. So being able to honor you all this way, the way the aldermen can, is the least I can do. And I always say this whenever you all need me, Mayor Jones, if I start naming names, you know, I could go on and on. So much leadership and examples that you all set for me. Please don't ever hesitate to call. Please don't ever hesitate to call. So with that, I'm going to step aside, and I'm sure Mayor Jones has words, and then leadership from the two amazing Delta Sigma Theta chapters that are here. I would like for them to speak as well. Thank you.
Good morning to the honorable members of the board. President Green, thank you for welcoming me and a few of my sisters today. I have been a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated since April 30th, 1999, the St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter. And for many of you who don't know, Delta Sigma Theta is about social action. And so that's why we are here today, to learn more about our government, how it works, who pulls the levers, and how we can get involved. Please know that when the women wearing red show up, we mean business. Because we're not new to this, we're true to this. Thank you for welcoming us today.
Greetings. My name is Shalana Scales Ferguson. I am the president of the St. Louis Metropolitan Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm here with my sister president, Tracy Carter, of the St. Louis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I want to thank the City of St. Louis Board of Aldermen for this acknowledgement and this opportunity today to be before you. Thank you to President Green and for all of you for your hard work and your service and commitment to the City of St. Louis. Thank you.
And there's not much to say after these two ladies, or three ladies, have already spoken. I am Tracy Carter. I am the president of the St. Louis Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you for welcoming us, and we're looking forward to a powerful day. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm not going to see the alder lady and my alder sis be up there in tears and not thank her for her leadership and let her know that I know that her mom is proud of her today and every single day for all of the service and all of the work that you do for social action. You almost had me in tears. I know how grief can be, but I really appreciate you for carrying the legacy forward, and sisterhood is in many forms. And I want to thank all of the Deltas, Madam Mayor, and everyone else for your wonderful legacy that you've set for Black women coming after you to follow in your footsteps. I have many folks who are Deltas that are mentors, and you guys are known for your fierceness, for your bravery, for your boldness around social action, but I think specifically around racial justice and economic justice. So thank you for that. And with that, I would like to make a motion to embank.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we embank Resolution 161. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, mine's on.
Motion carries. Resolution has now been embanked, which means that every single member of the Board of Aldermen has signed on as sponsor of the resolution. Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee. First, I have to also start off recognizing my colleague from the 10th Ward. I know your mother's looking down and just so proud of you. There is no other alder person at the board that just gives so much grace and class like you. You are one of the sweetest alder persons down here. You always support everybody. It's an honor to know you. It's an honor to serve with you. I'm glad my office is right next to you. You've been a huge help to me, and I know that feeling, and from one to another, she proud, and I'm just proud to be able to know you. So thank you for everything you do for this city. You wear the city on your back. When you say power of 10, your residents are lucky to have somebody like you. You don't never sit down. Every time I'm on Facebook, you somewhere live, somewhere in the community, making it happen. So thank you. To our Madam Mayor, because we got some Deltas in this city, you know. Our mayor's a Delta. We have Frederica, the director of Slate, that does amazing work, as well as I think our registrar, Ms. Boykins. And to all the Deltas here, I just want to say thank you for gracing us with your presence. But more importantly, thank you for the great work that you all do and the work that you're doing throughout the city of St. Louis to make sure that people are educated, engaged in the process. So excited to have you all down here to be able to talk to alder folks. I was listening to the mayor's speech earlier, very powerful. And like she said, this is your city hall. So I just want to welcome you and say thank you for being here. And so excited to be able to learn from you all and be able to have conversations with you later. So thank you.
The woman from the 11th.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. And Delta ladies, welcome, welcome, welcome. I was so happy to be able to get down here early today to take many photographs of you all as you were beginning to assemble. To my colleague, Shamim, having lost a mother, I truly know your pain. Likewise, Mayor Jones, you know, it's no small thing to lose a mother. And by the time we get to a certain age, most of us have lost one parent, if not both. And you have to know that everything that you are was created by the work that they did, everything that they poured into you. And you just say, thank you, Lord. Thank you for everything. And so, ladies of Delta sorority, even though I'm not a Delta, I still wore some red to make sure that you know that I am very, very supportive of all of the work that you do and all of the beauty and grace that you bring to our city. Thank you.
Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President. This is always a really awesome day for me, having the Deltas down here at City Hall. You know, in my 16 years as alderperson, I don't think you all have ever missed a beat being down here and doing the people's work. And for those of you that might not know, the Deltas do the work. They are in City Hall. They are in Jefferson City every year, bringing their causes, their passion for equity, for justice, for education, for our youth, to the leaders of this city, our community, our state. I can't thank you enough. Just being down in Jefferson City with you all sometimes, you guys work that phone tree. I don't know what it is, but it is just amazing grace and it is magic. And I love each and every one of you for the work that you do in our community, not just down here at City Hall. Like, they're volunteering in our neighborhoods. They're doing community service projects all across our city all the time. And it is so inspiring just to be in your presence and to recognize you this morning. It's the least that we can do for all of your efforts in the city of St. Louis. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman 6.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Alder Lady Clark Hubbard, for bringing this here. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for joining us this morning. And thank you, Delta ladies, for being here. And just, I'm going to keep it brief, but just thank you for your honor, your legacy, community service and social justice, your community, your commitment to our city, and your commitment to people. Thank you. We are better because of your work.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, just want to echo a lot of the sentiments that have been said by my colleagues here at the board today. It seems like every time I'm out in the community at a community event, Deltas are there. They are there doing the work, and we see it. We love it. We love seeing you coming in your red. When I walked into City Hall this morning and I saw you all in the rotunda, I was like, oh, it's Delta Day. It was so exciting. So thank you for all of the work that you do 365 to help make sure that our community is the best that it can be. Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you for your love of our community. And we will continue to honor you down here as long as you continue to do the work, which I think is going to be important. So thank you so much. And if and everybody wants to get on the steps over here and line up and get a picture with the Deltas, we can do that now. Or, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to break. It's going to collapse.
Here. Everybody.
Yeah. Y'all should just get on all of it. Let's take it from this angle. They might. Could have probably took it from this angle. Oh. It's okay. No, I'm fine. I'm good. Is she sick? It's quick. What's the purple? Domestic violence awareness. Breast cancer awareness. Okay.
Okay, so next we're going to recognize, she didn't tell me about this, but she apologizes on 160, and then she's going to bring up Diamond Divas.
Okay.
But
Yeah, it is. Right.
If you're ready to start, gavel.
Okay. Alderwoman from the 6th, you are now recognized on Resolution 160 if you would like to approach the dais. And if all the representatives from Diamond Diva and the Women's Safe House of St. Louis would join us up on the stage.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the Board of Aldermen. As you may know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and as we have members here and staff from the Women's Safe House and the Diamond Divas. And Madam Clerk, could you please read Resolution 160?
Resolution number 160, recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness 2024. Whereas domestic violence is a continuing and devastating epidemic in the United States, with data from the National Domestic Violence Hotline showing that nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 10 men experience rape, physical violence, and/or stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetimes. And whereas in 1987, the toll-free National Domestic Violence Hotline was created, and 2 years later, in 1989, the U.S. Congress passed Public Law 101 through 112, designating the month of October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas domestic violence is the physical, emotional, economic, and financial abuse committed by one intimate partner to another in person or over the internet, as an abuse of the dynamic of power and intimate relationships, and overwhelmingly as a measure of control. And whereas domestic abuse survivors sustain acute physical trauma, beatings, broken bones, rape, trauma, and concussions, as well as chronic physical trauma, a severely increased risk of high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, and stress-related illness. And whereas compared to the average person, domestic violence survivors become 2 times more likely to develop depression, 3 times more likely to develop PTSD, 4 times more likely to commit suicide, and 6 times more likely to develop a substance use disorder. And whereas domestic violence is an economic scourge, with 21 through 60% of victims losing their jobs due to reasons stemming from the abuse, and 38% of all victims becoming homeless at some point in their lives. And whereas domestic violence survivors escaping the abusive situations they face often find themselves needing support from domestic violence shelters, transitional housing, and support groups, the kind of heroically provided by organizations like the Women's Safe House in St. Louis. And whereas domestic violence is a slight cyclical epidemic, boys who live with domestic violence in the household are 10 times more likely to be abusers in adulthood, and girls are 6 times more likely to become victims of abuse. And whereas cutting-edge research and demonstrated that the effects of domestic violence are passed on to future children epigenetically with inherited alterations to crucial genes involved in stress regulations, and whereas Black, Latino, and Native American people are more likely to experience domestic violence, as are LGBT and especially trans people. And whereas the Missouri-based Rape and Abuse Crisis Services reported in 2023 that nearly 80% of the survivors it sees never interacted with police on their abuse for centuries. Domestic violence was regarded as a private family matter, and only in the past several decades there has been a concerted effort to train officers on best response, believe survivors, and prosecute abusers. And whereas we celebrate and continuing work of the St. Louis-based Diamond Diva Empowerment Foundation, with case after case of close interpersonal support to neighbors who became victims of domestic violence. And whereas the Missouri Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence reports nearly 33,000 unmet requests for shelter in 2023, making it essential that the City of St. Louis government continue to support and expand available agency resources in the area so all victims of domestic violence are supported. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Honorable Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to proclaim October 1st to October 31st as Domestic Violence Awareness Month 2024. We further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes, these proceedings, and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that we may be presented at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced this 18th day of October 2024 by the Honorable Daniela Velasquez, Alderwoman, 6th Ward. Adopted this 18th day of October 2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our City of St. Louis actually is a significant number of our homicides are domestic violence related, and Missouri actually has one of the highest rates of domestic violence related homicides in the nation. And that is in part due to our gun laws, which we know here at the city that we don't have a lot of control over, but obviously domestic violence is an issue that affects many of us. Sometimes it is hidden in plain sight, and rather than me talk about it, I'd like to use this moment to have somebody from both the Diamond Divas and the Women's Safe House talk a little bit more about why it's important that we raise awareness about this issue, and that's why Alder Lady Shamim Clark Hubbard and I are going to this week, but I'd like to bring somebody from the Diamond Divas to speak a little bit about it, and then we'll have some Women's Safe House.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
It is very important for us to continue to acknowledge and bring awareness to domestic violence. It's taboo, it's silent, so we want to always continue to make sure that it's heard. There are resources, as what we do up here as well, so Diamond Diva, we have Women's Safe House. We all work in different capacities. Where one resource begins and ends, the next one will start. So we are collaborating in order to make sure that survivors are getting the services they need and the education that they need so they cannot perpetuate those cycles of violence. So we appreciate you guys for acknowledging the work that we do, and we look forward to continuing. We hold a domestic violence rally and walk, which will be this Saturday, and it's to bring awareness, because so many say, where are the resources when they are going through that? It's several resources. I think St. Louis has the most domestic violence resources in the state. So they are here, and we just want to make that visible and also acknowledge our advocates that support us and individuals as you all and supporters to help us continue the work with the funding, right? And the individuals that are doing the work, but most of all, those that have made it out. Recognize them in the journey of surviving. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for giving us this proclamation and for being here today in support of domestic violence. I am very proud to share the stage with the Diamond Divas, and as she said, it takes a village. So it takes all of us together, including everyone that's here today, to really reach out and help the women and the children that are victims of domestic and sexual abuse. And that's what we do day after day after day. And we give very many success stories where women are able to get on their feet, start a new life, and thrive. We could not do that without the support of everyone in St. Louis. The need is much greater than what we can fill. We turn women away every day because we do not have the space. We have 60 women and children living in our facility at all times because there's still a need. So the support that you give us, the support the City of St. Louis gives us, and working with other organizations like the Diamond Divas is very important to helping the survivors of domestic violence. Thank you again to all of you, alder women and men, and thank you, to the president here for giving us this award, and thank you to Daniela as well. Thank you again.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 3rd.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and thank you, Diamond Divas, for being here this morning and for all of your tireless work helping victims of domestic violence. I believe I've mentioned this before, but you don't know who's a victim of domestic violence. And I think that that's really important for us to mention and call out. Many people wouldn't look at me and think that I've been a victim of domestic violence, but I have. My mother was a victim of domestic violence. My father abused her very badly. By the time I was in 3rd grade, I was in 8 different schools because we moved continually to try and avoid his abuse. My mom, very strong woman, incredibly strong woman. No one would have ever thought that she was a victim of domestic violence, but she was. She had the courage to stand up for herself, for her kids, and get out of that situation, but it took a village to help her do that. She never would have been able to do it without the love and support, because when you're in those relationships, my mom, I often like to, say she was a fixer. She loved fixing problems. She thought that she could fix someone who could not be fixed in that relationship. And I've kind of taken on some of those qualities of my own in some respects, and I've ended up in some unhealthy relationships that have once or twice, been very violent. And so it's really important for us to call out that just because, people often think that, women are victims, there are men who are victims, there are trans members of our community often are victims of domestic violence. And being able to provide services, shelter, assistance to those who are in need is incredibly critical, because without that village, oftentimes, as my colleague from the 6th Ward mentioned, just heinous things can happen. And if you haven't witnessed them before, it's just incredibly gut-wrenching for many people. And I cannot thank you all enough for the work that you're doing to support the victims of domestic violence. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your work in our community.
Alderman from the 11th.
Okay, there we are. Thank you, thank you. This is really one of the programs that is near and dear to my heart. I am a child of trauma, of domestic violence, having witnessed it in my home. My mother was a victim of, you know what, I don't want to call her a victim, because she got out. She got out through the help of my grandmother. My grandmother used to always, my mother would call and say, oh, he beat me up again. And my mother would be crying on the phone, and my grandmother would get on the road, and she'd be there, and she would be saying what you're going to do and what you ain't going to do and all that stuff. But one time my mother called her, and my grandmother said, child, you're not tired yet. And my mother was very hurt by that comment. Child, you're not tired yet because you're still calling me from the same place. And while my mother was upset and hurt to hear those words, they were the catalyst for a truck that came on a Saturday morning, and we left. And it was the greatest thing that could have happened for me and my siblings and my mother. I recently, about a couple of years ago, I went and pulled the deed for the house that my mother bought. We didn't know how she did it. The family who lived in that house sold that house to my mother for $100. A whole house. They understood her plight, and they knew that it would be difficult for a woman with so many children to find a place to stay. I can remember, and I can hear just as clear, my father saying, "Where you gonna go with all these damn kids?" We were his damn kids. But in any case, I'm happy to be able to stand here and to say thank you. We honor you. My cousin Lily Dale did quite a bit of work with Women's Safe House and other organizations, Peter and Paul, and so. My cousin Lily Dale was also a victim of domestic violence. And what that did for her was it propelled her into becoming a social worker and working with several different organizations. I can remember having conversations with her where she would be, covering up a black eye with makeup, but because she was going to work, counseling women who were victims of domestic violence while she was going through it herself. And that's real. That happens, But as my esteemed colleague Shane Cohn was saying, there are many, many victims of domestic violence. And it's not just a man or a woman. It's also the children who live with those horrifying memories of domestic violence in their homes. And so again, I thank you all so much for the work.
Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I think I've talked before in depth when we were doing the last round of unhoused legislation and talking about special residential uses of my connection to this issue. Like what I've learned about many of my colleagues today, I'm someone who also grew up with a childhood that was full of domestic violence. I would probably my entire life. And even though I have formal interactions with Diamond Divas now, what is not known is I actually had my first interaction with Diamond Divas when I was maybe about 12 or I was very young. And I started to, I think, just be in a place where I was a kid, so I couldn't understand exactly what was going on, but saw the many, many folks in our region, in both the city and the county, who just horrifying stories. I did throughout my middle school, actually in a support circle, and we were all children who had been or were currently in homes filled with domestic violence. And I was amazed that sometimes we would have waiting lists so long that we would have to have multiple sessions for all of us to be able to get in and have our circles. And so I'm very glad, thank you, Alderwoman Velasquez, for bringing this to the forefront. And it's something that I've been trying to make myself a little bit more comfortable talking about publicly, because it is, as mentioned, extremely traumatizing. You, very early in life, can gain a sense of unsafety, and you very early in life can observe the lack of social safety nets that are there. Many victims of domestic, and I agree, I'm not sure that I want to use the word. Many people who are abused and are exploited and taken advantage of are everyday folks. My mom is a nurse. I have several people who, in those groups, you wouldn't know from the outside. You wouldn't know, but you would sit in those circles and you would hear the most terrible stories of people who lived in homes with locks on refrigerators, people who were cutting themselves, who were younger, who then grew up with suicidal ideation. And I think it's totally been an influence of me deciding to study psychology and then work as a mental health advocate, where I got to see it just again and again. So I'm so glad, I want to thank my colleagues for being vulnerable with your stories and for being honest, because I think that it's really important for anyone out there who's experiencing domestic violence and for children in those homes to understand that it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with you. I think it's important that we talk about this as a serious issue that a nice portion of us actually experience and go through, and that there's no need to hold any shame of it. And so I think when we talk about it, we begin to create safe spaces for other people to talk about it, because I think that was the largest struggle with my mother, is there is a sense of shame and a sense of stigmatization where you almost would rather go home and take the abuse than to go publicly and say, hey, I'm experiencing this and I'm in need. So I just really want to thank my colleagues for doing this, and I don't know if there's been a motion to embank already, so I would like to make Bank.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we 160. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The resolution has been embanked, which means that now every member of the Board of Aldermen has signed on as a co-sponsor to the resolution. Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would love to stand up here and make sure that I give my gratitude to the Women's Safe House and to my family at Diamond Divas Empowerment Foundation for the immeasurable amount of work that you all do in the community. You save people. You save men, women, children, pets at the Safe House. So we need to make sure that we are to offer our full support, whatever that looks like. I would be remiss also if I didn't acknowledge that yesterday was Purple Thursday, and I want to highlight some of the entities that went purple for domestic violence, right? To acknowledge, what do we say? Ignite the conversation, light up the conversation purple, so that we can have the conversation, make sure they are connected to the resources and the future for them as survivors. I rode around myself. I got some pictures. Y'all know I like to take pictures. At the zoo, the Grove, St. Louis Ferris Wheel, the Science Center, the Planetarium, St. Louis areas, the entire 24/1 community, the firehouses, the police department, North Patrol specifically, I know has some, Mr. Villa, one of our former colleagues down here at Villa Lighting, my neighbor here to the southwest of me in the 4th Ward, Alderman Orion can brag that electrical IBEW4 went purple. Children's Hospital went purple. So many entities, including our own homes, with the lights that you can still go buy at Walmart for the purple light bulbs and put them on your porch. So again, we wore purple, we lit up the lights purple, and that was all to make sure that we shatter the silence, to stop the violence, make people feel comfortable with having their conversations. In many ways, we could say whatever we want to say, but only a survivor can encourage and inspire another survivor. And I love the way you all reach back for that. So thank you for your work. Thank you, Alderwoman Velasquez, for this. I look forward to our town hall. Thank you, Alderwoman Sanye, for making this in Banks to make sure that we send that unmeasurable sign that we are with you all, we support you all, and please always call on us.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 4th.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the committee, to the Women's Safe House, and to Diamond Divas. I just want to say thank you for the work that you do, like Alderwoman from the 10th said, saving lives and making it okay to be able to talk about things that so many times people have been scared to talk about. You know, there's this saying in the Black household, what happens in the house stays in the house. And that has been problematic for too long. And, you know, I've been able to just work and see the great work that Diamond Divas do, and the ability to make sure that, like Alderwoman from the 10th said again, that y'all stop the violence and shatter the silence and uplift, I think, a group that sometimes we overlooked, also men, how men are also being domestically violent, or have been domestic violence in their relationship. And again, I just want to thank you all for the work that you, both the organizations that you do. Y'all provide resources to individuals that are sometimes scared. You provide resources to individuals that don't know where to go. You provide resources to individuals to actually save their life. And for that, I'm just so honored to be able to be part of this resolution. I want to thank the Alderwoman from the 6th Ward for bringing this, not just this year, but last year, and I know she'll continue to bring it as long as she's here, because this is an important issue that we need to continue to highlight and uplift. And I look forward to the rally tomorrow. I got my Diamond Divas hoodie on. See the back? You know, for people back home. But there will be a rally tomorrow in the Grove, and just want to encourage everybody to come out to continue to bring awareness around this issue. So thank you both for the great work that you do to save lives in the city of St. Louis. Thank you so much.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Just want to echo my colleagues in thanking you for your tireless work all year around. As a survivor of domestic violence myself, it took a long time for me to be able to publicly acknowledge what had happened to me, and even when going through it, it took a long time for me to even talk to people that were close to me, my parents and my best friends, about what was happening, even though they knew it, but they also knew that I needed to get to the place on my own terms to be able to finally walk away. And so every year this means so much to me when you come down here, because you are a lifeline, and to so many folks that don't have anywhere else to go and don't have that lifeline, and helping to break that silence is exactly what we need to be doing. So the more that we're able to share our experiences, the experiences of our loved ones, the more that helps to break that silence, break the stigma, and get us to a place where we can have the real conversations that we need to have in order to decrease domestic violence in our communities. So thank you so much for all of the work that you do. And if members of the board would like to get pictures, we can all gather on the steps over here for pictures.
Okay. Just so that we. She's the only one. Yes. Once that happens,
What if there's no second? Oh, he is.
Yeah, she's asked. Yes, so she can.
Okay, remind me what 113
It's the
was?
short-term rent.
Page 9.
Okay, it's the cleanup. Okay,
Yeah.
I sent it there because.
Yeah, and then, it turned into a whole had to refuse.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we're. Okay, let me. Let. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized to, on the motion to adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the resolutions consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. We adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Introduction of honored guests. Is there any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to introduce Whitfield Montgomery, who is in the top gallery, a good friend of mine, come from the Car Square neighborhood. So glad to have him down here today, and I would ask the body to give him a round of applause and make him feel welcome.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Any further introduction of honored guests? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, October 11th, 2020.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we approve the minutes from Friday, October 11th, 2024.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th, that we approve the minutes from Friday, October 11th, 2024. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the Google Drive for your review.
Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendar? Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 8th, you are recognized on the suspension of the rules for the purpose of introducing Board Bill 118.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we suspend the rules for the purpose of introducing Board Bill number 118.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. Board Bill 118 is a board bill to reappropriate the ARPA funds that have been left on the table as of this morning. As we all know, the city of St. Louis received an unprecedented $498 million in American Rescue Act funds. This was in March of 2021. Let me repeat that, March of 2021. That was 3.5 years ago. These funds have a deadline. We all know that they have to be spent by the end of 2026, but more importantly for today, they have to be encumbered by the end of 2024, which is just 10 weeks from today. And as of this morning, according to the mayor's transparency portal with regards to the ARPA funds, there are still $165 million that have not been spoken for. This is an enormous amount of funds. We are 10 weeks before the deadline. Whether they will be encumbered or not, this is something that the general public has been, of course, reasonably so, asking about. And we have no indication of how many of those $165 million are going to be encumbered by the end of the year. It is my understanding that there's going to be work done in the coming weeks to get some of those funds encumbered. But again, what is most important here that we haven't had no discussion, there has been no clarity. The transparency portal, again, as of this morning, has $165 million still on the table. And we are now in a race to the end of the year to get these funds accounted for. And so what Board Bill 181 does is really just prepare the Board of Aldermen as a starting point to have these funds be allocated. We know from several weeks ago, almost over a month ago now, that the mayor's chief of staff came before the HUD's committee and explained that by that point, it was too late to issue new RFPs to reallocate funds. So what we need to do is be transparent with the general public, to be having open discussions about this historic amount of funding. This is a once-in-a-generation slug of money that the city of St. Louis received because of the negative impacts that our city had as a result of the global pandemic. Again, these funds have been sitting here for 3.5 years, and we don't even have contracts signed on them. We are so far behind the ball on this. And this board bill gives us the opportunity to have these conversations in a public setting. So recognizing that, in conversations with my colleagues, some of whom are privy to information from the mayor's office that I, as the budget chair, was not privy to, There will be work happening in the coming days. So out of deep respect for the president of the board, my colleagues down here, as well as the general public, I'm going to pull this board bill back here. But I do think that it is imperative that we have some open conversation, some dialogue, and some transparency with regards to this $165 million that we still haven't accounted for. And if the administration plans to start accounting for them in the coming weeks, we need to know about it. And more importantly, and just as importantly, the general public deserves an answer on just what we are doing with their money. This isn't our money. This is public money. These are public tax dollars that we have left. This is no way to spend this unprecedented amount of money. The last 10 weeks of a 4-year plan is no way to appropriate an historic windfall of funds that were designated to us because of the pandemic. There's not a single person in this room wearing a mask. Well, there's one. But my point is that the impact of this, we are long past due. We are long past due. And I'm grateful that the introduction of this board bill has apparently provoked some action on the part of the administration to have some conversations and have some dialogue and hopefully inform the general public as well as the Board of Aldermen just what's happening next with these funds. Madam President, I withdraw.
So Alderman from the 14th will need to withdraw his second. Then if you want to withdraw your motion.
Madam President, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Okay. First reading of board bills.
First reading of board bills. Board Bill number 111, introduced by Alderman Balmer. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the Fire Commissioner on behalf of the City of St. Louis to enter into the 2023 Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and accept the grant funds appropriating said funds and a required city match for said funds, and authorizing the Fire Commissioner to expend the appropriate funds by entering into contracts or otherwise for grant purposes and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 112, introduced by Alderwoman Spencer. And Board Bill number 112, introduced by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate above surface and subsurface rights for vehicle, equestrian, and pedestrian travel in 8th Street, 60 feet wide from Marion Street, northwardly in the city of St. Louis, Missouri, as hereafter described as accordance with Charter Authority and in conformity with Section 14 of Article 21 of the Charter and imposing certain conditions on such vacation. Board Bill number 113, introduced by Alderman Narayan, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission amending portions of ordinance number 71730 to provide updates to definitions for short-term rental permit and short-term rental unit, amend zoning code section 26.08 so that it incorporates the definitions created under ordinance number 71730 and update zoning code section 26.76 to mirror provisions pertaining to short-term rentals located in single-family A zoning districts that are contained in ordinance number 71729 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill number 114, introduced by Alderwoman Sanye and President Green, an ordinance amending parts of Chapter 26 by adding new definitions of special residential uses, amending certain uses of special residential uses, regulating special residential uses and site requirements, and containing a severability and emergency clause. Board Bill Number 115, introduced by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing the mayor to submit the City of St. Louis 2025 through 2029 Consolidated Plan and 2025 Annual Action Plan to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, containing assurability and emergency clauses. Board Bill Number 116, introduced by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps pursuant to Ordinance Number 70333, as amended by Ordinance Number 71394, to calm the flow of traffic on the 5900 and 6000 blocks of Horton Place. Board Bill Number 117, introduced by Alderwoman Schweitzer, pursuant to Ordinance Number 70333, as amended by Ordinance Number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps to calm the flow of traffic on various blocks in the First Ward. That is the extent of the first reading of board bills.
Reference to Committee of Board Bills.
To the Public Safety, Board Bill Number 111. To Public Infrastructure and Utilities, Board Bill 112, 116, and 117. And to HUD's, Board Bill Number 113, 114, and 115.
Second reading and report of standing committees.
The following board bills were reported out of HUD's with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill Number 108, introduced by Alderman Browning, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment authorizing the City of St. Louis, authorized by the City of St. Louis, Missouri, to issue its taxable industrial development revenue bonds. Apportionment. Introduced by the taxable industrial development revenue bonds in the principal amount of not to exceed $42 million for the purpose of providing funds to the pay costs of constructing an industrial development project in the city, approving a plan for such project, authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute certain documents related thereto, and authorizing and directing the taking of other actions and approval and execution of other documents as are necessary or desirable to carry out and comply with the intent hereof. Board Bill Number 62, out of the Legislative and Rules, Board Bill Number 63, introduced by Alderwoman Velasquez, an ordinance repealing Section 2 of Ordinance Number 70259, codified in Chapter 3.06.320 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis and replacing it with a new section providing for the clerk of the Board of Aldermen to record Board of Aldermen votes on board bills and non-courtesy resolutions, and requiring those votes to be published on the city website, and providing for specific requirements for those records and containing an effective date. Out of Legislation and Rules, Board Bill Number 95, introduced by Alderman Aldrich, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Cone, Alderman Orion, Alderwoman Velasquez, and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance to amend Section 3.72.030 of the Revised Codes of the City of St. Louis to add circuit attorney to the list of offices that have campaign contribution limits. Out of Public Infrastructure and Utility, Board Bill Number 83, introduced by Alderman Odenberg, an ordinance establishing a three-way stop site at the intersection of Macklin Avenue and Militz Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling northbound and southbound on Macklin Avenue and eastbound on Militz Avenue at the intersection of Macklin Avenue and Militz Avenue, and containing an emergency clause. Out of Public Infrastructure and Utilities, Board Bill Number 91, introduced by Alderman Aldrich, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Velasquez, Alderman Browning, and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, and Alderwoman Keys. Pursuant to Ordinance Number 68937, the proposed bill authorizes honorary street name Freedom Way, which shall begin at the intersections of Market Street and 11th Street to the intersection of Chestnut Street and 11th Street. Out of Public Infrastructure and Utilities, Board Bill 92 as amended, introduced by Alderman Aldrich, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, and Alderwoman Keys. An ordinance authorizing the renaming of the Civil Courts Building at 10 North Tucker Boulevard in honor of the Honorable Clyde S. Cahill, Jr., pursuant to ordinance number 68937. Out of Public Infrastructure and Utilities Board Bill number 109, introduced by Alderman Aldrich, Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, and Alderwoman Keys. An ordinance authorizing the honorary street name Tuskegee Airmen Way, pursuant to ordinance number 68937, which shall begin at the intersection of Chestnut Street and North 13th Street and run west on Chestnut Street to the intersection of Chestnut Street and North 14th Street. That is the extent of the second reading and report of standing committees.
Madam Clerk, could you please add me as a co-sponsor to 63 and 95?
Noted.
Report of special committees.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 15. Board bills for perfection consent.
We have none.
Can dispense with line item 16A. Board bills for perfection.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 16B. Report of engrossment.
Report of engrossments or Board Bill number 68 as amended, 103, 106, and 105.
Third reading and final passage of board bills consent.
Board Bill number 68 as amended, introduced by Alderwoman. Board Bill number 68 as amended, Board Bill number 103, Board Bill number 106. That is the extent of the third reading and final passage of board bills consent.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the third reading and final passage of board bills on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the third reading and final passage of board bills consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adopt the third reading and final passage of board bills on the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Alderwoman from the 1st? Oh. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer, Alderman Odenberg, Alderman Cone, Alderman Narayan, Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Sanye, Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Keys, Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Aldrich, President Green,
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg, Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Boyd. We have 12 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 10th. Third reading and final passage of board bills.
Board Bill number 105, introduced by Alderwoman Boyd, President Green, Alderman Odenberg, Alderman Narayan, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderwoman Velazquez, Alderwoman Sanye, and Alderman Aldrich. An ordinance updating ordinance number 71820, which pertains to the illegal discharge of firearms, to change the term weapon to firearm, change criminal negligence to recklessly, and updating exception to the prohibition and containing an emergency clause. That is the extent of the third reading and final passage of board bills.
Alderwoman from the 1st, you are recognized on the third reading and final passage of Board Bill 105.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to third read and finally pass Board Bill 105.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we third read and finally pass Board Bill 105. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you. This bill is updating language within the ordinance that we passed here at the Board of Aldermen April of 2024 to enact what's called Blair's Law at the city level. That was a bill in April of 2024 to be ready for when the state did pass Blair's Law. Now that they have, we've found some language that needs to be changed within what we have in the city of St. Louis in order to make it compliant with the state law. So that's what this bill does. It cleans up some of that language and makes it so that when people discharge a firearm in the city of St. Louis, there's various factors outlined in the bill, that it is not a legal activity. We know how dangerous it can be when people do that. So trying to do whatever we can here in the city of St. Louis to make it a little safer for folks.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we third read, and, sorry, Alderwoman from the 11th. It's too late, unfortunately. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 4th, that we third read and finally pass Board Bill 105. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Odenberg. Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Orion.
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderwoman Sanier. Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldrich.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderman Odenberg. Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Boyd. We have 12 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 1st to third read and finally pass Board 5. Reported the finally passed and signed by the President.
Report of the finally passed and signing by President, Board Bill number 68 as amended, Board Bill 103, Board Bill 106, and Board Bill 105.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix her signature hereto to the end that these may become law. First reading resolutions in reference to.
We have none.
Second reading resolutions, committee reports and adoption.
We have none.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Monday, Tuesday, October the 22nd, 2024, we have a HUD's meeting in Kennedy Room at 11 a.m. On Wednesday, October the 23rd, we have a public infrastructure at 3:30 in the Kennedy Room. Thursday, October the 24th, we have a health and human development meeting. It's webinar at 9 a.m. and personnel committee webinar meeting at 11 a.m. And Friday, October the 25th, we have our full board meeting in the chambers at 10 a.m.
Is there any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. The 11th Ward lost a true gem. We had a resident who'd been with us a very long time, 107 years to be exact. Miss Azeli Simmons Pitts was a wonderful and dynamic lady and energetic. And if I could show you all the picture, you would say, oh, that lady is not 107 years old. But she went to her reward on October the 10th. And so I am very, very grateful for her interactions in the 11th Ward, and she was very active with the community organization Active Older Adults, and we will truly miss Mrs. Pitts. Thank you.
If we could please stand and bow our heads for a moment of silence.
Thank you so much.
Any further announcements? Alderman from.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I forgot to do it last week, and it's never too late because I think this person is celebrating all month. Last Saturday, one of our colleagues from the Simmery 7th Ward turned 29. So if the body can wish her a happy birthday, she said she's celebrating all month, so it's not too late to get her a gift or take her out for food. Her love languages is policy, food, food, and food. Happy birthday.
Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to give everybody a reminder, we have an at-home, we have our town hall that I previously mentioned, co-hosting with the fabulous Alder lady from the 10th Ward. It's on domestic violence awareness, but storytelling through healing. It is doors open at 6 p.m. Program begins at 6:30 through 8:30. It's at the Dogwood, which is actually in the 9th Ward. So we hope Alderman Browning can stop by as well. We'll have hosts and programming from the Women's Safe House and Diamond Divas. We'll also have a resource fair. The Board of Elections will be there to stop by if you have any questions, since no excuse voting begins October 22nd. So we hope you can be there or at least tune in. So thank you. And I think that's it.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 8th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just want to announce a Budget and Public Employees Committee hearing for next Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Okay. Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I want to give a big shout out to Representative Kimberly Ann Collins. Representative Collins held, I think she calls it a neighborhood meeting, but there was almost 200 residents present, so I'm going to call it a town hall for the Greaterville neighborhood. Myself, Alderman Aldridge, Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Velasquez all had a chance to attend. Again, she just does community engagement like nobody else does it. 200 residents, multiple organizations, multiple people from city departments. It was an amazing event. And so we got to talk about some of the things coming up on the ballot, but and I also got to talk to them about Board Bill 114. And so I wanted to give a shout out to the representative. And then my second announcement is picking up an old torch. But now that there's actually legislation on the table, I also had the opportunity to join Alderwoman Schweitzer and Alderman Oldenburg at the Boulevard Heights neighborhood a bit earlier last week or this week. It's all blurring. Okay, last week. But wanted to again make that offer to any of my colleagues as well for any space that you might want to have me in, especially now that we have legislation in front of us. Please have me in. I do suspect that we will have a hearing on the legislation next week. But in the meantime, also always happy to go wherever you all will have me. Thank you.
Any further announcement? Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I have a few. I first want to thank everyone for their grace this morning in the special order of the day for the Delta Sigma Theta, ladies of Delta Sigma Theta, and the moment I had. Thank you. When you know, you know. So I just appreciate that, and I don't take it for granted. I want to share this announcement. Well, first I'll announce that on the Tuesday, October 22nd, which I'll echo Alderman Velasquez, is the first day of no excuse voting. Please, I encourage everyone to vote early. They're saying it's taking about 15 to 20 minutes to do this ballot, and you don't want to be caught up in a lot of the confusion that might go on election day. So why not take advantage of the 2 weeks earlier and do your duty? And so on that day, during the HUD's meeting, we will hear Board Bill 115, which is the 2025 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan that will be submitted to HUD. This is a really good opportunity to not only learn about that process, but to see the value in that program and how it puts money on the ground in all of our communities across the state. So again, on Tuesday, October 22nd, in that 11 a.m. HUD's meeting, we will get a presentation from the CDA for the 2025 CDBG grant. block grant presentation for HUDs. I also want to share this announcement with my colleague from the 9th, my neighbor, Alderman Browning, that tonight is Delish on Delmore. We talked about it in HUDs as well. It's from 5 to 10. They're blocking the streets off. It's going to be free fun, food, amazing bands, fellowship, and a good time. It's family friendly. They're celebrating an anniversary for Third Degree Glass Factory, so there'll just be a lot going on. The weather is beautiful, so please make sure if you can get by there that you do take advantage of that and the work and see the work that they're doing in that Makers District, which is remarkable. I shared another announcement with him as well, and I just always feel like I don't want to overstep him, so I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to let you do it because it's in your ward, but I'm excited about something that's happened, again, when we heard from Diamond Divas today, and they're having an event tomorrow as well. There's a lot going on in the city. There's always opportunity to get out. There's always opportunity to that you share the narrative about your city and not get caught up in a lot of the rhetoric. Thank you.
Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you. As Alderwoman Clark-Hubbard mentioned, I do want to invite everybody to come out and join myself and the Diamond Divas as we do the Domestic Violence Awareness Walk tomorrow morning. It starts at 10 a.m. It'll be at the intersections of Sarah and Manchester in the Grove, and we typically just do a quick march around the Grove, but it's a really wonderful event. A lot of people turn out, so wear your purple, wear it with pride, and come out and join us so that we can honor those and spread awareness about domestic violence to make sure that people understand that that is not what they have to live with and that they have allies who stand with them.
Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee. One announcement I forgot to mention. Tomorrow at Loretta Hall Park is All Hands on Deck St. Louis event. If you haven't been to Loretta Hall Park in the last few months, there has been so many amazing upgrades to the park, from a new court, new playground, a new soccer field, some workout equipment. It is just kind of the state of the art. So tomorrow we will have a park cleanup at 8:30 a.m. And from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. will be a resource fair, and then we will have a picnic going on at 12. There's going to be so many resources for the community and so many resources for individuals. We will have the treasurer's office there giving a $100 parking ticket forgiveness, the Office of Financial Empowerment, free grocery share, which will be food giveaway, care, STL, free blood pressure check, neighborhood improvement specialist will be there, family care health organization. There will be electronic giveaways for Ring doorbells to make sure that people are safe. So again, if you can, join us tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. for a park cleanup. The resources will start from 10 to 2, and then the picnic will start at 12 p.m. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? I also would like to just make note that tomorrow morning, starting at 9 a.m., there will be an event at the Delmar Divine that is commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Coro Fellows Program. Coro is what brought me to St. Louis almost 20 years ago, and we're really glad that this program continues to be in this city. So I want to congratulate them on 50 years of not just the program, but also being in St. Louis. So with that, Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we excuse the alderpersons from the 2nd and the 13th ward for necessary absence.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we excuse the aforementioned alderpeople for necessary absence. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adjourn until Friday, October 25th, 2024 in the Board of Aldermen chambers.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we adjourn until Friday, October 25th, 2024 in the Board of Aldermen chambers. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.